XBF insists I play a game he assumes he's better at. I complied. Every once in a while I think about this story while I'm idly playing Sudoku on my phone and it makes me smile. I realized it's perfect malicious compliance / petty revenge material. I don't want to go into too much detail here, but some background is needed. A few years ago, when I was in grad school, I dated a man who was several years older than me who had just finished his master's at the same school, completely different program but both in the realm of STEM, and started a company based on that work. He seemed to have a chip on his shoulder about the fact that he went back to school in his late 20s, and the fact that I was in a PhD program. I need to emphasize I did not think I was better or smarter than him in any way, and I thought and still think he is incredibly smart and his company does fascinating work, but he still projected this inferiority complex on me, and it was one of many things that soured our relationship. He was obsessed with feeling smarter than me and bringing me down a peg. The relationship ran its course within a year and the breakup was messy, but he insisted on remaining friends despite a lot of obvious tension between us. One day he asked me to help him pick up a moving truck he needed for work and I agreed, but when I got in the car, we were kind of quiet for a couple minutes, so I pulled out my phone and finished the Sudoku game I had up in my browser. For some context, I am incredibly good at Sudoku relative to most people. This is because I obsessively solved Sudoku puzzles as a kid and just had big books of them to solve on long bus rides to school, and it's still my go-to game to play while waiting in line, pooping, etc. I don't really correlate this with intelligence. My brain is just trained to recognize the patterns and solving them is soothing. He looked over and saw I was playing and asked what app I played on. I said I just play on a certain website I like, and when he asked why I don't use a Sudoku app, I tried to be as neutral as possible in my response and said that the website had a nice spread of difficulty and that every app I tried had either been all too easy or too hard. Admittedly, it's almost always too easy, but because of aforementioned inferiority complex I was hedging this on purpose. He had a kind of "oh really?" response and insisted I try the app he has on his phone because he was sure I would find it hard. So, I maliciously complied. I opened up the hardest setting of puzzle in his app and solved it in about a minute, beating the record on his phone by at least a minute and a half. I showed it to him and he seemed alarmed and basically said I got lucky. So, I played several more times so that my times flooded the fastest times list until his were all gone. His shock and frustration at this were satisfying on its own, but many months later, when I had long forgotten about it, he randomly sent me a screenshot of his puzzle in that app with a faster time, except it was for the easiest puzzle setting. So of course, to be petty, I immediately downloaded the app, played on the easiest setting, beat his time by a significant margin again, and sent a screenshot. Was this mean? Maybe. Was it satisfying? Yes.
Now to the comments. He obsessed for months about beating you once. He got exactly what he deserved. Nicely played.
Our family was at a Christmas party when one of the son-in-laws of our friends was going on about how he was the boggle master. We told him that my wife would beat him. He asked about her and her background and told him she had just finished an associate's degree in business. He laughed and went on about his engineering PhD and how he had been an engineering professor for 10 years. We all continued to warn him and tell him that it wasn't too late to walk away. If he chose to go down that path, his ego would never recover. He of course scoffed and laughed. 2 hours later he was suffering from an existential crisis and nearly in shock. She swept all of the games and he never stood a chance. He didn't win a single round and we all laughed and told him that he was warned. She used to go to baby showers or bridal showers with games where they'd give you a long word or name and you'd have to make as many words as possible using the letters, and her best friend would always announce that she'd win. Nobody ever believed it until 5 minutes in, when people would have a page of words and she'd be going on to her third page. She started sitting them out just because she didn't want to ruin anyone's fun. Never underestimate someone's ability to excel in really obscure games. Natural talent will often beat education.
I don't see what education really helps here. It's not like PhD research is sitting down solving Sudoku or doing Boggle all day. It must be exhausting to compare everything one does to other people.
Tell that to my mom. If some 25-year-old becomes a CEO somewhere, she'll ask me why I'm not at least a manager at 20.
Are you Asian? It's seriously a plague when these parents do that and break a child down. I had a co-worker that I really liked who got me started on the Sudoku puzzles. I love math and number problems, so I quickly got really good at them. He stopped doing them. He then included me in his love of cribbage. He carried the game around and we would play at breaks and such. I enjoyed it, and he was understanding that it took me a long time to add up my points. Good crib players memorize the scores and can add your hand as you lay down the cards. We had been playing for about a year during our breaks when I hit a 3-day winning streak. We stopped playing crib. I still enjoyed working with him, and it didn't matter to me if I won or lost a game, but it seemed to bother him.
I get that crib is part skill, but it's also luck of the draw.
A game can be won or lost based on pure luck, but the game has many levels of skill and strategy. Points are gained through understanding the odds of hitting a decent card from a cut, knowing the best card to play based on what you think your opponent might have in their hand, and choosing which 2 cards to put into the crib, separate set of cards whose points go to each player alternately. I started to be very tactical about my gaining points during the round, not falling into many traps that he set and building on my own opportunities. A really fun game once you understand the point system. Oof, memory lane time. When my college roommate had a Tetris high score on my computer, I simply could not comprehend. I'd get to the final stage and the blocks dropped so insanely fast I'd be wiped out in about a minute, every single time. No inferiority complex here, by the way. I'm a pretty smart guy, but I freely admit that my roommate was significantly smarter. He's still a close friend and he's a legit genius. Anyway, I used to play with the computer music off, and a CD cranking some tunes. This was in the late 80s. For months, his high score was safe, until one day, on a whim, I turned the Tetris music back on, and that's when I discovered the secret to beating his high score. The final level played a Russian folk song, and the pieces dropped quickly but at a playable speed, until the song ended, at which point they sped up to warp speed. And today I learned you cleared a single line of blocks, and the speed would immediately slow down again for several minutes. Then the song would start up again and repeat the cycle. All the time I'd been playing with the sound off, that functionality was not there. It was just warp speed the entire time. Anyway, with the music turned on, I finally beat his high score. It was so satisfying. I'm now sharing the story with a bunch of strangers, 25 years after it happened. But yeah, he's still way smarter than I am. P.S. OP, you'd kick my ass at Sudoku.
OP replied. Oh, I bet that was so satisfying. I also had phases of being obsessed with Tetris, but I was never that good at it. The music thing is hilarious because I always muted it too and never would have considered it could be functional.
When Tetris came out, I found I was really good at it. It might be because I load road cases on 40-feet trailers for rock tours. Playing 3D Tetris with 1,000-pound boxes can be fun. I always wanted to make a spin-off game called Roadie where stagehands were rolling road boxes to your truck and you had to stack them. My partner actually stopped playing Sudoku once I started beating him on it. He still says I took the game away from him.
OP replied. The reason I like it is because I'm just playing against myself because competitive games stress me out. How is that a real reason?
I've played one game of competitive Sudoku. It was during a morning train ride into work. The person facing me and I both had the free newspaper and both started on the Sudoku at the same time, and it was clear we were trying to outrun the other one without saying anything. I have no recollection if anyone won. It probably ended in a knowing smile between us and the knowledge we'd likely never see each other again. 10/10ths recommend this type of competition. Cracking the Cryptic is a great YouTube channel with daily live solves of, generally, very difficult Sudoku and Sudoku variant problems. They also post a link to the problem if you want to try it first.
OP replied. I love cracking the cryptic. Their puzzles definitely are a whole new level of hard, so I don't try to solve them often, but I really enjoy watching them do it. Great way to learn new logic tricks.
I'm nowhere near as good at Sudoku as you are, but I love all of their apps. I'll sit there and grind out a puzzle while watching TV for an hour or so and get really excited when I finish it. I recommend all of their apps if you haven't tried them already. Also, have you tried good Sudoku? It's if you're that good you would be able to fly through those puzzles because they take a lot of the slow parts out of solving.